The Demon Slayer universe might be more dangerous than One Piece, especially when you consider how difficult it is to take them out. So how long would the 3 strongest Straw Hats survive in the brutal Demon Slayer world? Well, today I'm going to share my extensive knowledge with you and tell you how this thing would play out. But I'll also break down some horrible matchups and abilities that I think would be a game changer in this fight. Now first, we'd have to line them up with 3 of the Upper Moons, which are the bloodthirsty bread and butter of the series. And if you've been watching, you'd know that they're giving out concussions and neck nibbles. These demons are capable of extremely fast regeneration. They have unlimited endurance, which is basically like beating the final boss, only to see his life bar refill after you knock him out. And all this creates a situation where you'll be covered in Spider-Man's favorite color. And I'm talking about the same one Uncle Ben had on. However, all that doesn't mean that they don't have a weakness, because these demonic minions have to fight you in the dark, because the sun will fry them up like a summer barbecue. So if you were able to hold out, they would at least have to retreat. And just like a snake in the grass, if you can liberate their head from their body, you can permanently put them out of commission, but only if you use a special sword. Now this is where our heroes come in. First would be third in command, Black-Leg Sanji, who specializes in delivering his size 9.5s to your unsuspecting skull, followed by an old school grapevine style stomp. And for the uncivilized savages who don't know, his body is almost unbreakable. And if you think you're going to beat him easily, you'll quickly find a foot growing out of your chest. But sadly, my boy suffers from the same illness as me, and that is extremely curvy women. So he will never fight one or attack a lady, which may be pretty bad because some of these demons are definitely women. Now on the other hand, we have the second in command, which is the king of hell himself, Zoro. And he's not afraid to chop down the ladies, if you know what I mean. But he gives the Straw Hats the biggest advantage to win, because he's a master at using a sword, so getting his hands on those special blades would make him the go-to person during a fight. Also, he has incredible speed, so if you try to open up, he's going to close that gap. And he will free you from the shackles of slavery you call life. Plus, my boy is fearless, but he does have a habit of getting a little lost. So if the battle gets real intense, you might have to wait a little for him to show up. Or you flat out gotta find this man. And if you weren't aware, he does take a lot of damage, which probably isn't the best thing to do around hellish creatures. But the glue that keeps both of these guys together is the undisputed shonen god himself, Monkey D. Luffy. And my boy comes equipped with the Gum Gum fruit, so physical attacks are not gonna hurt him, because I know for sure these demons do not have hockey. Plus, he has a gear for almost every situation. So if you're looking for speed, my boy got it. If you're looking for strength, he shall deliver. And if you want pure destructive chaos, we're serving up Gear 5 all day. But the one weakness he has is his vulnerability to being slashed. And Demon Slayer is littered with slashers. Now, like I said before, demons have crazy endurance, and the monster trio loves to go to sleep before a fight. But that is not happening because even the shadows got eyes on them. These demons are sneaky, family. Now the game plan would be simple, but the execution would have to be on point. First, Luffy would have to launch an attack on Upper 3 because this man is addicted to giving out beatings. And this is a lunatic that wants to square up with everybody. Second, Sanji would have to take on Upper 4 because this hideous creature loves to run away. And Sanji would be able to keep up. But most importantly, it's not a girl, because we know he refuses to beat up on them. So our favorite cook would be able to serve up a roundhouse kick or 2. And third would be the star of the show, Zoro. And he would have the most difficult job, because he's the only one capable of using a sword well enough to take one of their heads. But he would have to do all that while fighting the 2 siblings, Upper Moon 6 Gaitaro and Daki. Now I have to point out that they definitely would have knowledge on how to take them out, because this man Luffy makes friends everywhere he goes. So they would obviously be up on game, which means he would know that he needs to put his demon in an awkward position in order to give Zoro an opportunity to take their head. And if we're being real, it's just going to take a dash of Gear 5, because Luffy can eat or toss every attack back at Upper 3. and his ability to make everything rubber, such as the ground you're walking on, would eventually cause this demon to lose his balance for a split second, and Zoro would do the rest. But for our boy Sanji, things would get a little rough, because Upper 4 would definitely give him that body work, same way he did Tanjiro. So I completely expect some broken ribs. But once he figures out that little rat is hiding in a bush, he can show his world-class speed, because you're not going to outrun Sanji. And when he does catch up to him, my boy is going to deliver the meanest head kick you ever seen in your life. And when this man goes flying uncontrollably, Zoro will be waiting there to deliver that neck to heaven, which will then leave my favorite demons, who unfortunately are about to get jumped, with Luffy and Sanji taking on Gaitaro, and Zoro going after Daki. Family, this is going to be a bloodbath, because even Luffy is going to get slashed up, but he is immune to poison, so he is not going to let you off easy, and you can't relax for a second when you have death breathing down your neck. Also, he is not here for your sob story, so you can walk around feeling down, but you're for sure going to get beat up. And not to mention, he's gonna have problems keeping up with Sanji's kicks. So poor guy is not gonna have any time to think, and he's going to spend most of his time backpedaling. But his sister will be in an even worse position, because the hellish demon she's fighting is going to apply max pressure, and her little cloth sword is not going to cut it, which means the relentless attack is going to have her retreating. And that, my friend, will lead to her and her brother ending up in the same location with their backs to each other, leaving an opening for the green-haired demon Zoro to use his three-sword style to emancipate their head from the rest of their body. And that's how my boys would do in that universe. But if you feel like it would go differently, feel free to let us all know in the comments section. Eating a devil fruit seems like a dream come true, but I promise you, it would quickly ruin your life. So in order to help you make a decision on if you would eat one or not, I'm going to present to you 3 things that would be affected that the average person would overlook before taking a bite. And I'm not going to lie, after doing all this research, I think I changed my own mind. But the first big change would be your dating life. Because family, you're only going to attract 2 types of people. One being the cutie that's obsessed with power and can tell that you have potential to do some real damage. And if you think that's cool, then you've never dated that girl who calls you in the middle of the night to head to the bar to fight somebody. Trust me, it's definitely something you'd want to avoid. Because with your luck, the other person will be a darn devil fruit user. And now you're in a fist fight with the flame fruit. Now the second type you might attract is Miss Daddy Issues, which wouldn't be that bad if she didn't treat you like a circus animal, because this girl is going to have you doing everything just to show you off in front of her friends or to really get under her ex-boyfriend's skin. And in a worst case scenario, you might just end up eating a fruit that makes you ugly. I mean, have you seen some of these One Piece characters? You could end up with your face melting off. Or even worse, have your bottom half be covered in an eggshell. And if you're a man with some experience, you'd know why that's a very bad thing. Also, if you really think about it, there'd be an entire dating pool that would avoid you. Because just like everything else, people are gonna have some beliefs about you that might not be true. Like, if you get someone pregnant, does the devil fruit powers go to the child? Because you're never going to get a girlfriend if she thinks her kids' faces are gonna be melting off. I mean, would you want to take care of a toddler who could spit fire? I certainly wouldn't. But all that is small fries compared to the second thing it would affect, which would be your personal career and achievements. Because let's be real here, everything you do in life from here on out is going to be questioned, especially if you try to play sports. I mean, personally, I would want you banned, because the more you score and win is the more I'm going to complain about your devil fruit powers. And I don't care if it doesn't have anything to do with the sport, because there is no way you're out here beating my team like this off straight skills. Also, family, you better be ready to be harassed by the military, because they are for sure going to try to recruit you. And I can't blame them if they get a little aggressive, because there's no way I'm going to let a man who could turn himself into a lightning bolt run around the world like some type of free agent. No, brother. I'm going to need you to slap that country's flag on you and start representing the gang. Also, if you turn that down and decide to get a regular 9-to-5 job, you might as well expect to be set up by your coworkers and superiors, because jealousy is not gonna stop just because you got some powers. In fact, it's going to get worse. Cause what do you mean you have the ability to fly but want to be on register at your local supermarket? Man, if you don't get out of here and leave my work wife alone, matter of fact, they need to write you up for being 2 minutes late last week. They need to send you packing. Also, even though your coworkers don't want you here, you're still expected to perform. Because a human that could heat themselves up like an oven should still be able to work the fry machine easily. And if it's not cooked to perfection, best believe we're going to be vocal about it at the next meeting. And with all that being the case, you must also keep your ego in check and not run around acting like you're better than everybody else, despite all the mudslinging you're about to experience. Cause at the end of the day, we didn't tell you to eat that devil fruit. But even with all that, you might still be thinking of taking a bite. Well, let me introduce you to the nightmare scenario, your overall safety. Family, you're going to have to avoid extremely crowded areas, because there's going to be at least one person in there that has beef with you or devil fruit users in general. And if you're not careful, they could slip one of those prism cuffs on you and cancel out your powers, giving someone in that area the opportunity to take you out. Furthermore, you're going to be the prime suspect in almost every single case that can't be explained, because logically, the crime had to be committed by a devil fruit user. Maybe someone like you who can teleport. I mean, can you explain why we have so many missing people in our town? And if you stop and think, well, I'll always be on vacation. Brother, you better think again, because if you go to Mexico, the cartel for sure will be looking for you. Cause they can definitely use that little devil fruit powers of yours for their operations. And if they can't get you, they'll just kidnap your family members and force you to work for them. And to add fuel to the fire, spring break is off limits, especially when you remember that it involves being near the beach or getting on some yacht in Florida. Because as you should know by now, devil fruit users can't swim. So if you were to take one stupid step, you could find yourself sinking to the bottom of the ocean. And as someone who has been out in the open waters, that is not something you want to experience. But also keep in mind that there's a chance you might bump into a bully who is obsessed with your powers. Usually someone who has a devil fruit of their own. And family, you're going to have to fight people like that over and over. You're basically going to have a panic attack every time you step one foot out the door. And the worst part is, you might actually bump into somebody you can't beat, but the biggest threat to your safety won't come from the outside. Oh no, family. It will be lurking right inside your home, and that would be your girlfriend, who seemed cool at first, but has now started to secretly poison your food. Because little did you know that her brother who passed away was crushed by a building that you knocked over with your devil fruit powers. And she laid low and hid all that information from you, just so she could get close enough to have the opportunity to take out one of the most powerful users on the planet. And all this just because you wanted some cool powers. So that is something I will admit gives me second thoughts. But if you feel after all that you would still eat one, let me know in the comment section why that would be the case. Family, I might lose some people with this take, but Shanks might be the most respected fraud in One Piece history. And I'm not saying the man's weak, far from it. I'm saying his reputation is built like royalty, but when you check the receipts, they don't always match the myth. He's a legend who barely lifts a sword, yet the world trembles when he shows up. Roger's apprentice, Yonko, peacemaker of Marineford. The man literally stops wars by walking in. But today, we're shaking that fairy tale. Let's separate the myth from the man. It's time for the truth about Shanks, the legend they want you to see. Alright, let's start with the picture Oda's painted for us. Shanks, the untouchable saint of piracy. This man's story starts in chaos. Found as a baby on God Valley, raised by Goldie Rogers himself. That would be like being adopted by Michael Jordan after a championship game. He grows up surrounded by monsters, learning from legends, inheriting Rogers' hat, and later passing it to Luffy like a sacred torch. From the jump, Shanks was never just another pirate, he was Destiny's favorite. And over the years, the aura only got stronger. Think about every major appearance. He's calm, smiling, unbothered, until something he values gets pushed. In Fuchsia Village, he humbles a local bandit who thought status meant strength. Shanks laughed in his face until that man laid hands on Luffy. Then the mask dropped. One moment of Conqueror's haki, and it was pure silence. He taught us that true dominance doesn't need to brag, it just needs presence. Fast forward to Marineford, the world's literally burning, Whitebeard's dead, Ace gone, chaos everywhere. Then one red-haired man sails in, blocks Akainu like he's swatting a fly, and ends the war with a single sentence. You don't even see him fight. His words carry more power than any devil fruit. Sengoku himself, Fleet Admiral Sengoku, agrees to end it because it's Shanks. That's not strength. That's influence. That's leadership baked into legend. Then there's his relationship with the Gorosei. Every other pirate gets a wanted poster. Shanks gets a meeting. That's absurd. The world government fears him, respects him, or both. Either way, they let him walk into the Holy Land to discuss a certain pirate. No cuffs, no guards, just conversation. It's a moment that proves Shanks operates above the normal food chain of power. He's got connections that break the logic of One Piece hierarchy. And don't forget his haki control. The man doesn't just use Conqueror's haki, he's weaponized it. People faint across miles. He literally stopped an admiral without touching him. Green Bull felt that pressure and folded instantly. That's power on a whole other tier. Observation nullifier, Conqueror intimidation unmatched. Shanks reminds everyone why he's a Yonko without ever needing to scream it. So no question the legend looks flawless. He's the peacemaker, the savior, the balance between chaos and order. The man who bets his arm on the next generation. But family, between all that myth making, you gotta pause and ask yourself, when was the last time you saw Shanks actually be a pirate? Because for all the greatness, there's silence in his story that's hard to ignore. And that's exactly where the cracks start showing. The silence of power. Here's the strange part. Family, Shanks might be the quietest emperor of the sea we've ever had. The man's been a Yonko for decades, and yet we barely see him act like one. Kaido was running armies. Big Mom was terrorizing nations. Blackbeard burns flags and bodies. Shanks? My boy throws parties. Now, I'm not knocking the man for vibing, but think about it. How does a pirate who rarely fights or pillage hold the same title as monsters built on domination? Something doesn't add up. When you track the actual record, most of Shanks' feats happen in negative space. What doesn't happen when he shows up? At Marineford, he ended a war, but he didn't win it. Against Whitebeard, we saw heaven split, but it stopped before it even started. The fight with Kaido? We heard about it, never saw it. The clash that scarred him against Blackbeard? Also off screen. That's a pattern, family. His greatness lives mostly in reputation, not in what's shown. He's the ghost of the New World, feared, respected, but rarely proven. Let's call it what it is. Shanks doesn't make moves, he prevents disasters. He's less Pirate King contender and more world balance officer. Even the red hair pirates run different from everyone else. The other Yonkos have fleets stacked with monsters. Shanks surrounds himself with smaller allied captains. Crews that literally admit they survive only because of his flag. That's not a conqueror's army. That's a federation built on fear and faith in one man's restraint. And that's where this whole fraudulent conversation kicks in. Because ask yourself, does Shanks avoid conflict because he's enlightened or because he's cautious? Every time he steps in, it's to de-escalate. Protect the weak, stop unnecessary wars, talk before fighting. Admirable? Absolutely. But in the pirate world, that's not power, that's control. Strategic control. The thing that keeps you on top without ever showing your cards. And for a man who came from Roger's crew, the most freedom-driven pirate to ever live, that's a wild contrast. Think about Mihawk, Shanks' old rival. Their duels were so legendary that even Whitebeard remembered the echoes. But the moment Shanks loses an arm, Mihawk refuses to fight him again. Since then,
Silence. We never hear about another duel. We never see them sharpen each other again. It's like Shanks retired from ever proving his edge. He built a myth around humility while burying any proof of weakness. Some people call that maturity. Me, I call it protection. He's protecting the image, the illusion of being unbeatable through inaction. Even his scar from Blackbeard carries that strange duality. You'd think a top-tier hockey master getting scratched by pre-Yami Teach would be a wake-up call. Instead, Shanks treats it like prophecy. He warns Whitebeard, this guy's dangerous, plays messenger, and then disappears into legend again. But he never confronts Teach directly afterward. What does that tell you? A Yonko who can stop Kaido and an admiral, with his will alone, refuses to move on a threat he himself predicted. Maybe Shanks knows more about Blackbeard's power than anyone, and maybe he knows he can't beat him head on. And then there's the thing that nobody wants to talk about, his meeting with the Gurusai. Explain to me, because I'm still trying to unpack this one. How a pirate, the literal enemy of the world government, just strolls into Mary for a chat. No escort, no cuffs. The 5 elders treat him like an insider, not an outlaw. That's not normal, family. That's privilege. Maybe it's his celestial dragon lineage. Maybe political protection. Maybe both. Either way, Shanks moves like someone who has clearance from both heaven and hell. And I get it. Oda made his backstory mysterious on purpose. But let's keep it real. That's not independence. That's insider advantage. These clues add up to a pattern of power defined by silence. And don't get me wrong, silence can be terrifying. You ever been in a room where the quiet person could end careers if they spoke? That's Shanks. He's the guy who doesn't have to swing because everyone else assumes he could destroy them if he wanted. But silence also hides limitation. If you never act, no one ever tests you, and no one ever sees where you break. Picture this like a game of chess. While Kaido was wrecking pieces off the board, Shanks was leaning back, protecting his king before the game even started. Every move is defense, every action calculated to keep the board balanced. Admirable if you're a strategist, questionable if you're supposed to be a pirate emperor. It's like he's playing Grandmaster while everyone else is throwing haymakers. Smart? For sure. But where's the fire Roger had? The hunger Luffy lives for? What happened to freedom if all your decisions serve to maintain control? And that word, control, defines him more than power ever did. He controls rooms, emotions, and outcomes like a politician with divine hockey. The Marines fear him because unpredictable chaos ruins their system. The pirates fear him because he's too stable. So Shanks occupies that eerie middle, neither threat nor ally, walking the line like a referee pretending he's still a player. We can respect his diplomacy and still call out the truth, family. Shanks earned his peace, but peace built on mystery and silence ain't peace forever. Eventually, somebody's gonna test that myth. Whether it's Blackbeard, Luffy, or whatever comes at the end of this story, the silence will break. Because in One Piece, control never lasts. And when the calmest man in the sea finally gets pulled into the storm, that's when we'll see if the legend stands or crumbles. Now we're getting to the real question. Not about his power, but his purpose. Is he the protector of this world, or the gatekeeper holding it back? Because if everything he's done has been about balance and waiting, maybe we're dealing with something much bigger than just a pirate captain. Maybe we're seeing the architect of the entire next era, or the man too scared to unleash it. The fraud, or the architect. Now this is where things get complicated, family. Because when we say fraud, we're not talking scam artist. We're talking about a man who became myth by playing both sides of truth. On one hand, Shanks looks like the ultimate protector, betting his arm on the next generation, standing between madness and peace. On the other hand, he moves like the gatekeeper of destiny, deciding when the new era gets to breathe. He's not the fire starter of change, he's the brakes. And for a pirate, that's almost heresy. Look at the pattern again. Roger sought freedom. Roger tore through the world because he had to see what was hidden. Shanks had the same map, the same opportunities, even the same relationships, but he stopped. He built his crew, but not to reach Laugh-Tale, but to maintain order. It's like he inherited Roger's legacy just to guard it, not follow it. And when you compare that to Luffy, who moves on pure instinct and guts, Shanks starts looking less like the next Roger and more like the fence keeping Joy Boy's will contained until the right time. Maybe he's not afraid of losing, it's timing he's obsessed with. But maybe that's the point. Maybe he is the architect of this balance. Think about what we've learned. His connection to the Gorosei, his celestial heritage. That's not just luck, that's insider design. It's like Shanks realized that power without purpose makes monsters. So he became the cosmic moderator in a story full of extremists. Kaido wanted chaos. The world government wants control. Luffy wants liberation. Shanks wants equilibrium. He might genuinely believe the world can't handle another Joy Boy yet, so he's holding the chessboard steady until it's safe to fall apart. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If that's true, he's both hero and fraud. Because while his intentions might be noble, the cost is stagnation. Every time he chooses peace, someone else pays the price for the imbalance. Ace still died, Whitebeard still fell, the cycle moves forward whether Shanks allows it or not. Maybe his greatest flaw is believing he can contain fate. When his restraint stops looking like wisdom and starts looking like fear, that's when the mask slips. He preaches patience but rarely acts on faith. He protected Luffy but never joined the battle for the new world he helped inspire. He could have openly supported or opposed the government, but instead, he walks room to room pretending neutrality. That's why fans are divided on him. Half see the saint, half see the spook. Some think he's the second coming of Roger, others think he's Imu's secret agent in Red Cloak. The truth probably sits in between, a free spirit chained by responsibility no one else could handle. Even Luffy's shadow depends on him. Luffy carries the dream, but Shanks owns the legacy. One represents freedom, the other maintains balance. And when they finally cross paths again, that contrast won't be a reunion, it'll be judgment. Luffy represents the storm that Shanks keeps holding back. The apprentice's dream clashing with the mentor's order. That might be the real final war, not between pirates and marines, but between motion and silence. So is Shanks a fraud? Depends on what you believe piracy means. If you see piracy as chaos and freedom, yeah, he betrayed it. But if you see piracy as rebellion against stagnation, Shanks might be rebellion's final form, the rebel who learned to manage the revolution he once embodied. That's why Oda keeps him a mystery, because Shanks doesn't fight the sea, he shapes its tides. At the end of the day, Shanks isn't a fraud who faked strength, he's a visionary who faked weakness to stay in power. He's the calm middle of the storm that both sides need alive. That's why the Marines fear him, the pirates respect him, and the fans can't agree on him. Whether he's protecting the One Piece or preventing anyone from reaching it, Shanks is hands down the smartest man in a world full of blunt weapons. He might not be what Roger was, but he might be what Roger needed. So here's my final take, family. Shanks isn't the strongest or the purest. He's the smartest strategist the seas have ever seen. He wins not by fighting, but by knowing exactly when not to fight. In a world obsessed with devil fruits, armies, and destruction, this man proves control might be the most terrifying power of all. But control comes with a price, and Shanks has been paying it for decades. So tell me, when the new era finally breaks his order, do you see him standing as protector or puppet master? Drop your take in the comments, because this debate is far from over. And if you want more reality checks on legendary power, click on my next video on why having a devil fruit in real life would be absolute chaos. And I'll see you there, family.